friends, I'm Carrie Jo, and this is Holy Chuckles Podcast, a space where all meets honesty and where God's gentle humor shows up in the people he chooses. So pull up a seat, take a breath, and let's look together for the sacred in the everyday and the quiet laughter of a God who delights in working through our imperfect stories. So, I already talked about where this podcast is going. I am going to start in the Bible about the things that I have been going through and where God is leading me. We're talking about the stories in the Bible being a lamp, a sword, and a mirror for the soul. The Bible is about learning to hear God and following the heart, the soul, instead of the outer, the ego. Let me tell you how dense I am, because we're going to start out there. When God and I said we were going to start this podcast, I kept seeing the name David all around and I wasn't getting it. But finally I got it. God wanted me to tell King David's story. I didn't understand why until I got into it. Now I get it. I got it. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to tell the King David story, but I am going to tell you that I am a person that if I'm going to tell a story or if I hear of a story, I want all the details. I read about the king of Israel before King David, which was Saul. I read that he was anointed by Samuel. I was like, how did Samuel become the king anointer? I went and read about Samuel. So I knew that I was supposed to start with David. And because I was so dense before and didn't understand what God was calling me to do, I wanted to obey. I was just going to start with King Saul in this story, but I was having a real hard time with that because I felt that Samuel's story was just as important to some of the things that I wanted to talk about. I'm in the shower one day and I am telling God, I get it. We're co-creating this. I have some input. I have some things that I would like to say. I'm telling God all these things about Samuel that I really like and that I am enjoying his story, him being the king maker and all the jobs that Samuel had. Because I feel like in my life, even though I had one title, I've had a million jobs with that title. Samuel resonated with me so much. A couple of days after I had this conversation with God in the shower, I received this email and it says, if you were starting your podcast over again today. Hi, that's me. I read it because I'm interested in it and I get down to the signature and it says best, comma, Samuel. It said Samuel. It said it was from Samuel. I was like, yes, yes, yes. Now I'm a person that needs breadcrumbs. I need God's breadcrumbs. Call them synchronicities, call them messages from God, whatever you want to call them. I call them God's breadcrumbs because me and my little soul, we're on this journey to where we're supposed to be going. And I need breadcrumbs like Hansel and Gretel. I need to find my way back home. And that's what I'm doing. That to me was a breadcrumb. Like, yes, we're good. Tell the Samuel part, move along your way. I am going to most likely go verse by verse or in a couple of verses. If you want to follow along, great. If you want to pull out your Bible, fantastic. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to read it word for word. I like to paraphrase. I like to tell the little story in my way. I'm starting out with 1 Samuel 1:1-2. I wanted to know about Samuel's parents. How did he get this great job of his being the mouthpiece for God, and who were Samuel's parents? There was a man named Elkanah in the hill country of Ephraim. If I say these words wrong, go about your business. He had two wives, one named Hannah, who was barren, and one named Peninnah, Repeat it with me. Peninnah. She had Elkanah's children. Hannah, his wife, was so beloved. He loved Hannah. Because I don't want to sit here and try to keep pronouncing this name right or wrong, I am going to shorten it to Penny. I know that shortened version of the name is okay. Let me tell you why, because I got another breadcrumb. The day that I'm sitting down reading this and going through all of this, either I'm planning or going to watch a friend of mine, her band that's local. I am going through this and I'm making plans to do that. All of a sudden, I call Peninnah Penny. Yes, I'm going to call Peninnah Penny. The name of my friend's band is Penny and the Flamethrowers. I was doing all of that, making those plans. Peninnah, calling her Penny, Penny and the Flamethrowers. Yes, I'm in. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's my breadcrumbs. For purposes of me not pronouncing it wrong this whole entire time, Peninnah is going to be Penny. Penny was the mother of Elkanah's children, the literal version of it. He had 2 wives. He's from this small town, and one has kids, one can't. The symbolic version of it, because this is where I'm going with all of this. I'm going with the literal version. I'm going with the symbolic version, and I'm going how this resonates in my life. Elkanah, the gentleman from the town who had 2 wives, in Hebrew means God has possessed. God has created. Why possessed? God has claimed something of his own. We are all beings of God. We are made in his image. I am that I am. We all come from God. God is claiming us, our human soul. It implies a relationship not of distance, but of interdwelling and ownership. I come from God. I am God's. I belong to God. If I go to 1 Corinthians 6:19, it says, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own." Again, in the Bible, it tells us we are not our own. We are temples of the Holy Spirit. Elkanah is the deep center of yourself that belongs to God and through which God works. We all have our Elkanah. We are created by God. We are part of God. We live from awareness that God possesses me. I am created and sustained from within. Your inner and outer selves start to reconcile. They start to come together. You start to not live from your ego, from your outside, but you start to live from your inside, from your God center. If Elkanah meant our soul, our God center, then I had to go see, okay, what is the inner and outer? That had to be Hannah and Penny. Hannah, who was beloved but barren, represents the inner self. Hannah in Hebrew means grace, favor, or beauty. That's our Hannah. It equals inner spiritual self, divine potential, but unfruitful. Unfruitful is not living in awareness of God, no deep peace, no wisdom born of divine union, you and God. I am that I am. Person loves, prays, and seeks, but still feels empty inside. Let's talk about that for a minute. How many of you go to church? You do all the things that you're supposed to do. You're kind, you're loving, you are doing everything that God wants you to do, but you still feel like you're missing something inside. What is it? What are you missing? Is it that connection of you and God? Have you fully surrendered? Do you really have a relationship with God? Or is it, I'm following the steps? I'm going to church. I'm being a good person. I'm reading my Bible. I am saying my prayers at night before I go to bed. All the steps that we're taught to do. Am I really having a relationship with God? Penny is our outer, our productive life, everything from the outside. Penny means pearl or outer adornment. I found that interesting. Penny symbolizes our outer personality, the self that appears fruitful in the world. She has children. She's achieving. She's productive. She's socially validated because in that time, having kids was something that a woman was there to do. If she couldn't have kids, then what was her purpose? So her children represent what the outer represents to us. Her children, in quotation marks, would be forms of worldly success. Our house, money, car, job, status, everything that people see on the outside that makes us someone that people think are successful. If I have a big house, if I have 2 or 3 cars, if I have money in the bank, people think I'm successful because in our society, that is what success is. Hannah, our inner, she felt like a failure because in those times, if you couldn't have kids, it was a personal failure. It was social shame. It was a sign of divine disfavor that God didn't find you valuable. And so he made your womb barren, which is untrue. Untrue. Penny and Hannah, in our world today, it's our inner struggle with our outer. I have all these great things, but I feel like crap inside. I do all these great things, but yet I don't feel fulfilled. What is going on? Both women are living in the house, and Hannah is jealous and irritated that Penny has kids and Hannah can't. Penny is irritated because she has produced these kids, but yet their husband really does find more favor in Hannah. She is his beloved, his heart, his everything. They each have pain and jealousy over each other. If you look at Hannah not being able to bear children, the symbolic part of it, this is our soul being awakened by God. No matter if the outside of us is getting what we want, the cars, the job promotions, all of that, our inner is still lacking. We're not being fulfilled. When you're feeling that way, you seem to have everything, but yet inside you feel like you have nothing, or you feel like, what is my purpose? That is the turning point for you. It was the turning point for me. I had a good job, 20 years, and I'd climbed up the ladder. I had savings. My kids are great. I had nice places to live, going out, doing things, taking vacations. My outer seemed great, but my inner felt empty. So when I looked at my Elkanah, my Hannah, my Penny, I have to go back and look at how I could tie the knot. This wasn't just a Bible story about a man who had 2 wives, one that could have kids, one that couldn't. This was about my soul finding the path that I was supposed to go on, my soul reconnecting with God, my creator. Elkanah isn't a man. He's the God essence in me. Elkanah equals the God essence that has always been inside me because I am that I am. I am created in the image of God. I have a little piece of God in me that God put in me. My Elkanah, my soul, my inner, it's always remained faithful, even when I ignored it. When I ignored my God essence. One of the episodes I talked about a dog following you around, and that's God following you around everywhere you go, even stealth quiet. Even when I was ignoring God, even when I've forgotten about God, even when life's stuff was more important than God, when I didn't really even believe in God, God was always there inside me, just deep down waiting waiting. My God essence is loving both my outer and my inner. My God essence, my Elkanah, is loving both Penny, who can bear children, who has all these great outer things, and my Hannah, who is barren, who hasn't remembered who I am. God loves both of them. My whole life, I had forgotten who I was, whether it be by circumstance, whether it be by things that happened to me, whether it be by things I created. I forgot who I was in God. My Elkanah was simply waiting to be remembered. My Penny, my worldly things, my job, put my friendships, my romantic relationships, my family relationships, I put them all before myself and before God. My possessions, my social status, my degrees. When I got degrees and I thought that's what I was missing, that education, that didn't do it for me either. None of these things fulfilled me. They made me happy in moments. They sustained me in some of those times, but I was never fully, truly happy. If I go through some of the years of my life, because I had to go back when I was reading this story, when did I start trying to find my Elkanah, my divine essence? When did I start realizing I was missing something on the inside, my Hannah? When did everything from the outside become more important, my Penny, than I was or God was? So if I go back to 2008 and 2010, God tried to call me into solitude. God tried to call me into being into my own. There were some things that happened in my first relationship where we should have separated back 2008 and 2010. But no, I was fear of abandonment because of all my abandonment issues. I was fear of being by myself. I was a person that felt worth in serving others. Of course, how can I serve others when I'm by myself? In 2008 to 2010, my first partner and I, we should have separated. We should have released each other from the bondage that we kept each other in, but we didn't. Instead, we bought a house. We bought a house. Not only did we buy a house, the same year that we bought the house, which was 2008, we bought the house, I'm going to say in March or April, painted the inside. We were so excited about painting the inside. And this was on Galveston Island. We painted the inside, and man, I hate to paint. Painting is the worst. When we painted everything, I was so accomplished. I felt so good. And then Hurricane Ike came and flooded our house. All the hard work, everything moved in. We were literally left with nothing. Guess who still didn't get the memo that this is not what I should have been doing? No, I persevered. I fought the good fight. So did she. She fought the good fight too. She was also going through finding her Hannah, finding her inner peace. It's like we were kind of doing it together and we weren't having these conversations. There was fear in being separated because when you go with someone that you are comfortable with, that no, y'all don't fight. Y'all don't have horrible days. You just are existing. It's easier to coexist than exist by yourself in fear of what might come, and can you handle it by yourself? That was 2008, 2010. We stayed together this whole time through like 2017, 18. That relationship ended. Instead of me saying, okay, Carrie Jo, let's take some time by ourselves. Let's figure out what we want to do. No, 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 no. I jumped right into another relationship. Why? Because my last relationship, she was doing her thing. She was really finding her Hannah, her inner self. And when you start to find that, sometimes it can't include someone else. So she was on her path. We just drifted. When you have someone who finds their worthiness, me, in saving others, Captain Save a Soul, you have to go find someone else that you can save. You have to go find someone else that you can serve. I did that. Nisha and I got together, and Nisha had a rough life. I was here to serve. I was here to take all of her burdens away and make sure that I found my value in helping her in all the things that she needed. I jumped right into that relationship, didn't even give myself a minute. I'm not finding my inner Hannah, figuring out what my purpose is and healing my trauma. I'm jumping into another relationship. I'm living from my Penny. Penny was the wife that had the children being fruit, the symbolic outside, the symbolic fruit, status, love, degrees. That's where I was putting my self-worth in. If I wasn't in a relationship, this relationship ended, people would say, oh, you can't keep a relationship, or you're not a good person. You didn't make your last relationship work. Nisha is beautiful. And I had someone in my life that would always say that I married up. That is a crappy thing to say. I then took that in that, oh, I married up, so I have to make sure this relationship works. What I didn't realize is that I was just as attractive, just as worthy, just as valuable as someone who was attractive on the outside. We always say inner beauty is better than outer beauty. We say it, but I think sometimes we don't mean it. Instead of finding my inner beauty, I went with someone who made me feel validated. And you know what? That's a crappy place to be, not only for me, but for her, because she was more than just a beautiful person. I think if anyone had a chance to get to know Nisha the way that I knew Nisha, wow, her insides were fantastic. What a beautiful person on the inside. God just happened to bless her on the outside too. Her insides were just as valuable. I placed value in having a job. My job ended in 2023. Instead of going, hey, let's look inward to see what we're missing, what's going on. No, man, me and the rum bottle, we had dates every day. I was drinking. I was just in misery and couldn't figure out. It wasn't the job. It was God trying to be like, hey, I'm taking your distractions away. I need you to come find me. We have more things for you to do. And it's not just sitting at a desk, telling people what to do, or training people, or dealing with billing and collections. I have more that I want for you. You should want more. I was really trying to find my lasting peace, but I am going to tell you, it wasn't in that rum bottle. It wasn't in the relationship that I was in. It wasn't in my degrees. Excuse me. The supervisor wants a little lovin'. If you're just joining in, the supervisor is my cat, the tiny terrorist. We stopped calling him the terrorist part a while back because thought we are going to get flagged by the government. We just refer to him as Tiny, but he comes and checks in every now and again. 2020, Nisha and I got married right before COVID happened. And as we were coming back, COVID was in full effect. Now we were at home, couldn't go anywhere. Everybody had to stay home. I am going to call this kind of my Shiloh moment. Shiloh in the Bible, when Elkanah would take his family to Shiloh to offer the sacrifice. It's a place of peace and tranquility. If you look at the symbolic version, your Shiloh moment where you're quiet and you're having to be at peace with no distractions around you. Now, yes, of course, I just got married. There's that distraction of being with someone. Also, I think Nisha was in her Shiloh moment as well. My only distractions were I worked from home. My wife and my animals, just like Tiny distracted me here just a few minutes ago. In that time in COVID, it was a spiritual mirror for me, but I didn't know it at that time. I had no clue at that time. If you think about my Shiloh moment, God literally paused everything. When we came back from our wedding, more than likely we would have kept the party going. We would have kept on in our, what we like to call our shenanigans. We would have kept going to parties, drinking, hanging out. We didn't stop drinking. During COVID, our drinking spiked, but it was quieter. Because the only time you could see your friends was on a Zoom call. By the time you got done with work and you had been on the computer or Zoom calls all day long, who wanted to be on another Zoom call? It was more peaceful, more quiet. In 2022, my inner Hannah started crying out. My inner soul started crying out, Carrie Joe, we want something more. The outside stuff doesn't matter. It's not doing it for us anymore. Please, let's figure something out. I was drinking and eating a lot during those times. I was trying to fill that inner void. My success at work didn't matter. That was a holy distraction where I wasn't looking within to see what was going on. I knew something was wrong with my job. I knew I didn't want to be there. I knew I wasn't concentrated on it. I knew I probably needed to leave, but it's what I'd always known. It's where my self-worth was. I decided to go back to school and get my bachelor's degree. After that, I was getting my master's. It was still outer validation. It was still living from my ego, living from my penny. I was still kind of starting to listen to my inner, starting to listen to my Hannah, because I was moving more towards education and learning and seeking and not living from the outside. In 2023, my 20-year job ended. Where I built most of my foundation was not even in my relationships. It was my work ethic, my jobs, being able to support myself, being able to purchase the things that I wanted. My outer foundation crumbled. So got my master's degree. Didn't care. For what? For what? At the end of 2024, I tell the story of when I met God. That is when my divine awareness was conceived. And my inner Hannah, my soul, my inner connection with God started to scream very loudly. I started to listen. I didn't know what was going on, but I started to listen. I built my spiritual arc. If you guys get a chance, do it. If you're on your spiritual journey or this is kind of making sense to you or it's resonating with you, build that for yourself. So I'm going to do it, my phase, my symbol, and my meaning. 2008 to 2010, my Elkanah was calling. God was inviting me into solitude to remember who I was. 2010 to 2020, I lived in my penny era, the outer success, relationships, possessions, but I had inner emptiness. Then 2020 to 2022, barrenness was revealed. Isolation, dissatisfaction, my soul began to cry. 2022 to 2023 is the Hannah awakening, my soul's awakening, my inner healing, spiritual hunger, and education seeking. In 2024, which again, we'll get into this later, but the birth of Samuel, which is when I met God, my divine awareness was conceived. I found this so interesting when I put everything together, what was going on in my life and what was really happening to me. God told me to tell the King David story, and I wanted to start in the Samuel story. I realized the reason I wanted to start with this because I'm the type of person that needs to know from start to finish where I am, what happened, how did it happen, or understanding where I was in my life when it wasn't working to what kind of woke me up. And now in my spiritual journey, where I'm going, it has made a lot of sense to me. I went ahead and went on to Samuel 1:3-7. And this story talks about when Elkanah would take his family to Shiloh. They would, travel to this different town, and that's where they went to worship and to make their sacrifices to God. Because, back then they had to sacrifice animals to God. I'm so grateful God doesn't require that from us now, because wow, there'd be a lot of animals everywhere because the things we do now, woo wee. Anyway, after he would sacrifice, he would use that animal to feed his family. He would give portions to Penny and all of her kids, and then he would give double portions to Hannah. Why would he give double portions to Hannah? Well, he loved and adored Hannah. Hannah was his heart. And not only that, God had closed up her womb. She was not able to have children. So if you think about it in terms of when you think about yourself, you gussy up, if you will, your outside, but you really love your inside. When you sit by yourself, nothing around you, it's just you in your presence, in your energy, you realize all the things you love about yourself. You really like, man, I love myself. I'm the shit. That's how Elkanah felt about Hannah. He loved her. Penny was so jealous of Hannah and how much their husband loved Hannah. She gave him several children. She could still feel and see how much he loved Hannah. She would mock Hannah. Man, Penny was so mean to Hannah. She would mock her. She irritated her. She would make fun of how Hannah couldn't have any children and made fun of her barren womb. Hannah was like, ugh, this lady irritates me. I can't stand her. I can't stand her. Her and all her kids. She probably loved the kids, but probably also wanted to trip them too. Even though Hannah felt so loved and adored by her husband, she still felt sorrow and humiliation because she couldn't have kids. If we look at the symbolic version of those verses, that story, Elkanah, God has possessed divine essence that holds both our outer and inner life together. Elkanah loved both his wives. He favored Hannah a little bit more, but he loved both of them. And he really worked on trying to keep the peace. In fact, there was a part in the Bible, he says, in verse 8, her husband Elkanah would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? He was like, listen, I love you so much, Hannah. Don't worry about Penny. Sometimes she's just mean, but inside she really likes you. She loves you. He's just trying to keep the peace. If you think about it symbolically, he is the indwelling spirit that unites both the quote unquote wives, the silent waiting inner life, Hannah, The penny, the pearl or shining one, she's our outer self. Part of us that finds worth in productivity, appearance, and visible results. Her fruitfulness, her children, represents activity with intimacy, success without surrender. All those things that we have on the outside that everyone can see. Our cars, our jobs, everything. When Penny would mock Hannah, that's our ego saying, hey, look what they have. Look what you don't have. Penny was like, hey, look what I can do. I can have children. Hannah, you can't have children. You have no womb that works. It's our outer mocking our inner, saying, look what you don't have. Hannah, which in Hebrew means grace or favor, is our inner self. If you think of her womb, it really is our divine preparation. The womb being shut is not a rejection from God. It is a preparation from God. So we're ready and we're wanting to surrender self. God brought me to my knees and gracefully broke me. And that's kind of what was happening. All that mocking that Penny was doing to Hannah, and Hannah, all that longing just to want to have a child. And that's us, our soul being gracefully torn apart from all of those things on our outside, our inside stepping forward and wanting more than what our outside is providing. Shiloh in Hebrew means peace or rest. For me in COVID, that peace and rest helped me turn inward. That was my start of turning inward. When I lost my job, didn't have that focus. That was another Shiloh moment for me of turning inward. I don't know that I turned inward to talk to God, but I know I turned inward. I just didn't know where I was going inward or what it was doing. Honestly, I thought it was depression. I wasn't sure what was happening. I honestly thought, what am I doing? Why can't I succeed? What is holding me back? Why is this shit happening to me? I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. And it seemed like everything was being taken away. My reflection when I read that was I was desiring a deeper life with God. I just didn't know it. My soul was calling out to God, but I didn't know what was happening. It was the ego, my ego, my penny was resisting. It was ridiculing me. It was, you're wasting your time. You should be more like them. When I was pulling away from everything that I knew and every person that I knew. The divine longing, when you long for something more. I didn't know it was called divine longing, but when you long for something more, it begins with emptiness. We kind of have to get all the muck out and let everything go that's distracting us. God creates desires before those desires are fulfilled. I'm not talking about desires of a house, a car, a job, money, all those outer things. I'm talking about desire on the inside where you're trying to find your life's purpose. You're not sure what's going on. That ache that I was trying to fulfill with alcohol, food, and relationships, that ache was continuously there, but it was also proof that something was more than what I thought. Something was happening that I couldn't explain. I had a deep longing and a deep ache at the same time. I didn't know how to fill it. When you think about the mockery that Penny did to Hannah, it was necessary. Without Penny mocking Hannah and irritating her so much, Hannah would have never got down on her knees and begged God for a child. Without resistance, we'd never press on through prayer. I'd never prayed, but I can remember me saying, God, there's gotta be something more. Penny's cruelty drove Hannah to the altar, drove Hannah to drop on her knees. The cry of the soul becomes a gateway. Whenever I'm yelling, God, I don't know what I'm doing here. There's got to be something more than this. I know we've all probably used that sentence. There's got to be something more than this. It is a cry from your soul, from your inner self, from your Hannah, to try to start living from your inner being, your authenticity, who you really are. Going back, looking at this, my Hannah moment was being separated from my wife, my familiar people, my job, being separated from familiar roles, and feeling alone, even in my old space, who I thought I was, still feeling alone. When I left that outer life, I don't even know if it's because I wanted to. It's if I go through everything that happened, God was like, let me take this, like one of those claw machines, right? You go and you want to get that toy. God's like, meh, picks up my wife, chunks, picks up my job, chunks, and just throws everything away. If I was Elkanah, my penny was taken away. No more noise. I felt barren. I felt alone. I even felt somewhat humiliated. I didn't have a job. My relationship was removed. My bank account was drained. I'm going to live in an apartment by myself. What is happening when you go from all the things that society says is successful to all of those things being taken away? You start to wonder about your life and think, oh my gosh, what did I do to deserve this? It wasn't, what did I do to deserve this? I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. I was in my barren womb, my womb of transformation. It didn't feel good. Barren womb does not feel good. My soul, when all these things were taken away, my soul finally cried out in probably the most honest way that it could, because I had no one else to impress. It's just me. I had no one else to take care of. I had no wife, no friends, no job. I'm distant really from my family anyway. I wasn't anyone's confidant anymore. I wasn't Captain Save a Soul anymore. I was taken away from all of that. My cry out to God, it wasn't a breakdown. It was a birth pang. My soul at that time was saying, I don't want to live like we've lived before. I don't want to live from the outside. I want to live from the inside. I want something more. I want authenticity. I want something born of spirit. I want that relationship with God, not only for myself, but for the world around me. And I wasn't the best that I could be. And I wasn't a good example. I wasn't even a good person, even though I thought I was, because I was living for those moments that people would tell me I was a good person. I was living for those accolades, those likes. I was living from a place of being wounded. I was living from a place of trauma. I was not living from a place where I thought people around me would love or want to be around the real person that I actually am. A kind, loving, gracious, humble, emotional. Oh God, I'm so emotional. Sometimes I get on my own nerves. I wasn't sure, because everybody loved the boisterous, the outward, the Carrie Joe that was funny all the time, make everyone laugh, say and do the things that nobody would do. But that shock value is what people liked. And my inner Hannah soul, my I am that I am, my oneness with God, prefers the kind Carrie Joe, the loving Carrie Joe, the one that wants to help older mean people in the Kroger parking lot, or who wants to give every dollar she has to every person standing on the street corner, who wants to make sure people are okay, not that one that wants to be loud and boisterous and make sure the attention is on her for the wrong reasons. That's not really who I am or who I want to be. 1 Samuel 1:9-11, the literal of it is, after Elkanah's family finished eating and drinking at Shiloh, Hannah stood up in her anguish because Penny, she kept going and just drove Hannah to her breaking point. She stood up in anguish and cried out to the Lord, Lord, give your servant a son. If you give your servant a son, I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. God, just please give me this baby. Give me this son. I just want to love him, hold him, care for him. But when you give him to me, I will give him back to you. I will show him your ways. The symbolic version of that is it represents the devotion our soul has to its creator, to God, the part of our soul that longs for divine fulfillment. If you look at the word anguish, because I said Hannah stood up in anguish, it's the breaking point of your ego, the breaking point of my ego. When I was fed up and tired of being that person that I no longer liked, that I no longer resonated with. Barrenness. If I think about Hannah's barrenness, it's that inner emptiness, the womb that wants to be filled with a child, the soul that wants to be filled inwardly, not with all the outward crap. When I look at the word prayer, when Hannah cried out to the Lord in prayer, it's the turning point. I remember crying out to God and saying, why am I here? What is this for? What am I doing? My soul was not happy. My soul wanted and started to feel that inner. And that's what it longed for. Again, we talked about Shiloh, what Shiloh means in Hebrew, rest, peace, and tranquility. When I was by myself in my own apartment, in my own space, in my own energy, it's that inner stillness. It's that spiritual relationship with God that's happening, the divine conception. When Hannah said, I vow I will give him to the Lord, it's our self not serving our outer, not serving our ego, but surrendering ourself, who we are, to God. People have said, God, if you do this, I will do this. That's literally what Hannah is saying. If you give me this child, I will give him back to you. I've said this, God, if you do this for me, I promise I will be a good person. God, I want to live for you. Let me be your vessel. Let me be your hands. Let me be your feet. Let me be your mouthpiece. In that moment, Hannah was saying, whatever you birth to me, it won't serve me. It will serve you. I said to God, the plans you have for me, I will do. That's that co-creation with God. There's this song, and I love this song. It's called The Refiner. And I'm going to go through, no, not the whole song, but I'm going to go through some of what the song says and just show the symbolism. I think this is why it resonates with me so much. It says, take my life as a sacrifice. So I'm sacrificing my old self, my ego. The next line, I want to burn for you. Burning symbolizes purification. The next line is clean my hands, purify my heart. Clean my hands represents changing behaviors and choices. Purify my heart aligns my outer and my inner in love with God. I'm always going to have an ego. We all do. But it's when that ego takes a step back and it allows our inner self to take charge and become our authentic self without that ego stepping forward, kind of like being an asshole all the time. That's sometimes what our ego is. The next line is, I want to burn for you, only for you. That's a given. I want to burn for you, God. I want to live for you. And then it goes on to say, you're a fire. I didn't know this, but now I know it. Fire is the agent of transformation. So I wanted to transform myself. The refiner, it's a divine force. It's God. The refiner is God. I want to be consumed is the next line. Asking for total transformation, letting go of control. Ooh, I was a control freak. And allowing the divine process, even when you don't understand it, even when everything is taken away and you have nothing, zip, zero, nada. You allow the process to take place. I want to be tried by fire. Endure the test and challenges that awaken and strengthen the soul. I have been enduring my challenges, and I'm going to continue to endure them. I'm going to continue because my life does not belong to me any longer. It belongs to God, and we're co-creating this life. Some of the challenges I understand, some of the challenges I don't. Now I'm reflecting back on some of those challenges and I understand them a little more. The next line is not really a line, it's just a word, purified. In the song, it says, I want to be tried by fire, purified. Emerging with clarity, authenticity, and spiritual maturity. Now, I feel like I am really working on that authenticity and I am working on my spiritual maturity. Sometimes my ego comes to the forefront and I think I know things that I don't know, but I am working on that and I'm learning and I'm reading and I'm delving into this head first with God showing me the way. The last line that I'm going to go over is actually, it's the second to the last line. You take whatever you desire. I said, God, here's my life. Take what you want. Do with me what you will. Pure surrender. I had to release control of the outcome, including this podcast. I started one way. God said, that's not the way you were supposed to go. And so here I am going this way. But what if 3 weeks from now, God says, yo, we're going to take another pivot? I just have to follow. People ask me, oh, you quit your job. You're doing this podcast. How do you make money? It's not a question for me. I don't know how making money on a podcast works. No clue. But God said, make this podcast. And I obeyed. God said he will take care of the rest. And I'm having faith. That's my job, is to obey and have faith. There's no other job that I have but to obey and have faith. The last line is, Lord, here's my life. So it's, here's my life, God. I am the sacrifice. Here is my life. Do with it what you will. And I'll follow along. We'll co-create together and I'll follow. Sometimes I try to lead. First part of the podcast. But now I'm following. So when I reflect back to Samuel 1:9-11, all my distractions have been removed. I wanted to say I removed all my distractions. That's not the case. God removed all my distractions. I was in my Peninnah moment where I had all my quote unquote children, my wife, familiar people, my job, my responsibilities, my commitments. And then God put me in Shiloh, my alone time, where rest peace, a space for me just to be me and find that authentic me, and everything else removed. It was literally just me. And I will tell you, for someone who didn't rest a lot or who didn't find comfort in resting, I found comfort in chaos. I will say resting was very hard for me. I know God tried to make me rest before, but woo, I did not know how to do it. I will tell a short story. I remember when Nisha and I lived together before we were married. We had just started living together, and this had to have been on a Saturday morning, no commitments, no anything. I was used to waking up early and doing everything. This time, I guess I was just tired. I needed the rest, and I woke up past the time that I usually would wake up, and I bolted, just sat straight up, and I startled Nisha out of her sleep, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, it's 9 o'clock." She's like, "Oh, wait, did we have plans? Did we have commitments? What are we doing?" I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Then why are you doing this? What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know what to do. I haven't slept in. I don't know what to do. What is happening?" She's like, "How about you just lay back down and just rest? Maybe your body needs the rest. Maybe your mind needs the rest." But for me, I had lived so long in chaos. That was my norm. My nervous system didn't even know what calmness or peace was. I didn't know how to live there. Now I know how to live there because God put me in my Shiloh and made me sit in my Shiloh to regulate my nervous system. Let me tell you something. If you don't know how to regulate your nervous system, first of all, there are lots of articles about it. Do it, find it. But one of the great ways to regulate your nervous system if you're having issues is learn this on TikTok, get a ice pack and put it on your neck, between your neck and your chest, and just leave it there. Try it. If you can't regulate your nervous system, try it. It is amazing. But put it between your neck and your chest and just let it rest. Just let it sit there. And no, it's not comfortable, but man, will you feel better. In the scripture, when it says Hannah cried out, I cried out. And I cried out finally in honesty to God because I was alone by myself in my own space with no one to judge me, no one to go, "What's that crazy lady doing?" I cried out to God. And from that moment, from that honest cry, it it began something in me. It started something in me, and it wasn't about what can I achieve. It wasn't about a relationship, whether it be romantic, friendship, or family. That cry was a cry of awareness, a cry of me reconnecting with my inner soul, my inner connection with God, and starting that real relationship with myself and with God, and understanding all of that along with these scriptures that are supposed to be our lamp, our sword, and our mirror was so eye-opening to me. So I hope with this information that I've shared, you are excited to come along on this journey with the story of David and everything that happens within it, from the literal parts of the Bible to the symbolic parts that I'm talking about, and the reflection that I've had in my life. I'm super excited to go on this journey, and I hope you are too. Thanks for joining me for Holy Chuckles Podcast, where we remember that God's calling doesn't always make sense, but it's always full of grace. If today's story reminded you that you too are seen, chosen, and loved right where you are, then that's the light shining. So until next time, keep your heart open, your laughter genuine, and your light shining.